Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Dan Woodman from the University of Melbourne. I'm a sociologist, but I'm also the president of the Council for Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences in Australia, which is it's a peak body that represents universities and industry members who employ CHASS graduates, but primarily it's a peak body made up of the different national and sometimes trans-Tasman discipline associations in the humanities, arts and social sciences. Just before I get started, I wanted to begin by acknowledging that although we're in different places, we're meeting in a virtual space. I'm physically at my university campus, the University of Melbourne in Parkville, which is the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I wanted to begin by acknowledging their elders, past and present, and acknowledging any Indigenous people who might be watching this presentation. Today, we're showcasing one of the joint winners of our CHASS Prize for Distinctive Work. And CHASS represents the humanities, arts and social sciences. So you can imagine the kind of breadth and diversity of the work that is eligible for this award, and it covers research projects that are more traditional through to theatre performances, poetry, multimedia installations, anything you can imagine. And we get some wonderful entries. But today in Social Sciences Week, we're showcasing one of our joint winners from last year, Dr. Marg Rogers, from the University of New England, and she's going to be talking about the project that was awarded the prize, Child and Family Resilience Program's Children's Literature Project. So I'll now welcome Dr. Rogers and hand over to you to tell us a little bit about your award-winning project.
Great to be here. Thank you for your acknowledgement. I'm working and living on Anaiwan land in the New England region of New South Wales, and that country, although it is Anaiwan land, it has also been nurtured and visited and lived on by 3 other nations, so that they are the Dungari, Gambanja and the Gamilaroi nations, and I acknowledge their custodianship of the land as well. Well, thank you for inviting me today. It's very exciting to be talking about our research project. I have the privilege of standing here talking to you about the project, but I want you to understand that this is an enormous team that I've had the privilege of leading. And it has been researchers, but also many volunteers and people with lived experience. And we all worked together during the pandemic to create these resources. So I'll be talking a little bit about the target cohort for the resources and looking at how we use child and family narratives to create those, co-create them. The initial resources that we won the award for, the storybooks and interactives, and also the modules, and then also the evaluations and how we adapted those, the expansion of our project to include the Manna Institute, which is an institute that supports mental health and wellbeing, especially in rural, regional and remote communities, and also how we use that to create personalised programs that are free. Our extension in age and families and partners, and also what we're doing with our Canadian collaborators, and how we set about applying for the Distinctive Work Award, that which is why we're here today. All right, so looking at the research context, the ABS has revealed that 5% of Australian households have a defence or a veteran member in them. So that is actually quite a lot, and people are surprised sometimes when they hear that figure. So that has implications for the people in those families, and particularly if there are children in those families. They could be multi-generational families as well. Currently, 30% of our current military members live in regional Australia, but that figure jumps up to 50% of veterans. And that has a lot of implications for their ability to access mental health and physical health supports, medical supports. Additionally, we have 80,000 first responders. And some of those are recognised in the figures and some of them aren't. So there's many more that help out, either as volunteers or people who assist the volunteers. So, for example, my partner is a grazier and he assists the volunteer firefighters and the regular firefighters when there's a danger in his area where his property is, because he's got a spray rig on the back of his vehicle. So there's many other people that are exposed to natural disasters and are helping out with those. Due to the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters, there are more people who are being traumatised by this, and this trauma can be passed on through secondary transference to family members. So the children in these families, all of the ones I've mentioned above, generally speaking, have poorer mental health outcomes and poorer educational outcomes. So our baseline study showed that 61% of parents from defence and veteran families felt only partially confident to support their children with the stresses of military family life. So those stresses include parents working away. It can also include parents who are constantly asked to relocate the entire family. And also they might come back from training or from work or from deployments with a mental health condition, or that is related to their work, or a physical health condition. So it could be an injury or it could be a medical condition that they have. Over a third of parents reported that their children rarely cope well on 2 wellbeing indicators. And so not only first responders and remote worker families experience this, but there are others in our community that experience some of those, but not necessarily all of them. So there's potentially vulnerable families out there in our Australian society that had not been catered for before. So going back a bit, my PhD and my recommendations report that came out of that looked at parents and educators and the children. And I worked with the children for over a month that had parents who were current military members. And I used a participatory approach, and that means that the findings don't belong to me and the people who can see academic journals that are behind firewalls. Participatory research means that you have to agree and you have to use the data to improve the lives of those you research with. And you don't research them, you research with them. So the children and the parents and the educators were my research collaborators in this. And I had to agree with them that I would use the findings to improve their lives if I could. I found that there was a lack of access to age and culturally appropriate resources for that cohort, and that made them feel isolated and alone. The parents felt this especially, and they felt a bit bitter about it, that they were giving up so much to be part of a military family, and yet there was just a lack of support. Our baseline survey of parents and educators said they were struggling to find resources, and this was frustrating them. So this has been echoed in the Australian Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide interim report. The commission is still running, but the interim report came out last year. And the quote that is here says, "Consistently, we've heard that families feel marginalised and invisible, even though family support is a significant protective factor for the serving and ex-serving members' health and well-being. We've heard of the invisibility of children and families. Also, if we're not looking after the child's psychosocial development, then the risk of intergenerational trauma runs even higher." So to help address that research gap after my PhD, we applied for some philanthropic funding. We got some funding. It wasn't a lot of funding. And we decided we would create some free research-based intervention resources to assist defence, military and veteran members. So we co-designed and co-created with a big team, and that all the people listed there on that slide show the depth and the extent of our team and the skills that they brought. These were all volunteers. I didn't get any payout. Nobody on our team got any payout, buyout, academic buyout to be doing this research. It was just part of our load. And I'll talk more about how much time went into this project, but it was something we were super excited to do, and we felt was a real privilege because the families and the educators and the support workers who supported the families were really struggling to find something specific. There were a few US-based resources, but they were found not to be culturally appropriate. So we co-created using the narratives that I had gathered from the children and from the parents and from the educators in my PhD. We used those and we wove those into our resources, and we created resources for children, young children and their parents, educators and support workers. And we also gathered narratives as we were going along from service providers and from people with lived experience. So the research was ongoing throughout the project. We created two types of resources. One you can see there, which is the parent resources in the form of multimedia modules. And the other type, which is what we won our award for, and that was the research-based children's storybooks. And we co-created 12 books based on lived experience narratives from my PhD data and other sources. So they're in PDF, ebook downloadable form. There's digitized ebooks, and there's also interactive versions of those. For each book, there's downloadable educational resources, and you can read there some of the things that are in those educational resources. But importantly, the puppets provide children with the opportunity to work with their parent in order to act out some of the scenarios in the book, but then as an opening to be able to talk about their experiences in their own family. And the books are really a touch point to open up a discussion between the parent or the educator or the support worker and the child about what is happening in their family, so they're able to express that. And it's also a chance for children to read about their lives reflected in these narratives, and it helps them to feel that they're represented, because before they hadn't been represented in children's literature within Australia. There's also read-along recordings of all of the books, and some of them we have managed to have keyword sign read-alongs for children with hearing impairment and language delays. So at the time when we created them, it was actually during the pandemic. And so people were suddenly available to give a lot of time. So what we thought was going to within the budget be quite a small project, we ended up extending it. So initially we said we would only do resources for children, parents and educators. And then we said, well, while we're there, why don't we do support workers? And we were only going to develop, say, 9 storybooks, but we had a budget to go and travel. But we were creating them during 2020, so we couldn't travel. So we ended up creating more storybooks. So it has been created, all of these resources, with a huge amount of volunteer work, including my own, but all of the peers, a lot of peer academics, a lot of community members, and a lot of family, extended family of some of the steering committee members. So we evaluated them in 2021 and 2022 with educators parents, defence school mentors, and some people who work for Defence as development liaison officers. So they were able to help us to know how to adapt the books to make them even better. And then we got some feedback that we initially thought, look, that's above and beyond what we have the budget for and what we have the time for. And basically they wanted a personalised set of weekly tasks that would support their children. And they said, look, we're really time poor and we don't have time to search through your whole website trying to find the resources that are going to suit my child. If my child's melting down or the children I'm supporting are having difficulty with a certain topic, I want those resources and I want them now. So we thought maybe service providers would best address that. However, then I was seconded to also work at the Manna Institute 2 days a week, and that's when I started to work with interdisciplinary researchers. So Manna Institute is it's a Commonwealth Funded Institute, and it's part of the RUN University Network, which is a rural university network. So right along the eastern seaboard, all of the rural universities. And through that, I was able to work with a machine vision technology specialist, which I didn't even know existed. And they helped co-design and co-create an individualized program for the end users to use, which was about using a database retrieval system. So basically, it just helps people access a huge amount of data and personalize it for their particular needs. So I'll show you what that looks like. So basically, they go on to the site. This is free, and they can do it as many times as they like. And importantly, we had to do it without creating an account. So defence and veteran families are very adverse to making an account anywhere. They don't want to be seen to be accessing supports. They're worried that might filter back to their employer, and they mightn't be able to get to go on deployment, to get a promotion, or to be given certain responsibilities. So it had to be anonymous. So parents, educators, support workers can go on and they can click on certain things that we offer resources for, and they can find out, they can also say if they're a support worker or an educator, things that they need more information about. And then they can create a personalized program. And once they've created that, if you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there, all of those resources that it spits back out at them are downloadable as a PDF, but also they can click on those and it takes them directly to the particular resource that would be best for them. So who's using our resources? They are being used by Open Arms and all of the other services that are listed there. I won't go into them in detail, but these are major national organisations. Also, parents, early childhood educators and school teachers are using them, which is exciting. We only released them in September last year. They were available before that, but only to people who were test driving them as part of our research. So with our partners at the moment, we're actually going through each module one by one and adapting them for other families. So we're including now first responder and remote working families. So by remote working, I mean the parent leaves the household and leaves the community and goes away to work, which might be, FIFO, DIDO, or it could be, they're part of the transport or the natural resources or the renewables industry, but they have to leave the home, and that creates disruption. We're also increasing activities in the modules for 9 to 12-year-olds. So all of our resources are published under a Creative Commons license, and this has led to international collaboration. The Canadians love what we're doing, which is really exciting, and they are adapting all of our storybooks for their families. So we're involved by just advising them and assisting them in that process. And so they will send me things that they're looking to change with the storybooks, and I will help them or assist them with, my knowledge of education or early childhood or other family support or sociology issues. So I will just advise them with that. But they're hoping to have them out in school libraries and town libraries and city libraries by the end of the year, which is really exciting. And we enjoy that. It's great fun being involved with them. We're also creating moral injury resources. This has only just started, and by this time next year, they should be available for our families. So a moral injury is something that happens when somebody has deep-seated beliefs, and then as part of their work, usually, but it can be in other forms in society, somebody does something or they do something that crosses that line, and it often can lead to mental health issues. It's not a mental health issue in itself, but it can really impact those in their family. It can also lead to post-traumatic embitterment disorder, PTED, as opposed to PTSD. And we are working with our partners to create those resources, which is exciting. The CHASS Awards. So as I talked about before, I was so grateful for the large number of volunteers. So to say thank you, I decided to apply for the 2022 CHASS Award. I had no expectation that we'd win anything, but I just wanted to do it for our volunteers because they have given so many hours. And so I did up the application as best I could, and I sent the application obviously to CHASS, but I also sent it to the volunteers and to all the team members and just said, look, you're good enough to win a prize. In my eyes, you deserve a prize, but it doesn't matter whether we win or not. I just really want you to know that we've done a great job. And even if we're only helping, a handful of children or thousands of children, it doesn't matter. We've done something positive to support this vulnerable cohort. So you can follow the project. You can use the QR code to go on and play with our new personalised programs and have a look at the types of resources it spits out for you. You can also leave feedback about the program that it comes up for your particular needs. And you can just follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or you can just check out some of the resources that we've created. But I just wanted to say thank you to CHASS for this opportunity to talk about the research, but also for hosting these great awards to recognise work in the social sciences, because it's often an area that isn't recognised, and I really think it should be recognised a lot more, because it is about what makes us human.
Thank you so much, Marg, and what a lovely way to finish with both recognition of the wonderful work your team has done, but also a plug for the awards. Very much appreciated. And yeah, one of the things that really stood out was the way that there was passion and a team who deserved that recognition behind this project that was very much embedded in that ethos of participation and a community. And yeah, I want to finish by thanking you for your presentation and congratulating you and the team once again for being one of the joint winners of our CHASS Distinctive Works Prize for 2022.